What's going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. We are back with Bills Chat Live. We did not go live last week. It was a holiday week. Schedules were a little bit off, but we're back this week for a big AFC matchup. With me tonight is not Luka. It is Stokes. You're familiar with him. He's the third man on the show. Stokes, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm ready for this Bills-Bengals matchup. It's interesting, Stokes. When this schedule first came out, this was a game we all kind of highlighted. Two teams that we expected to not only be in contention for playoff spots, but maybe AFC championships, the two of the best quarterbacks. Maybe you have an MVP race coming down to the wire. And then Joe Burrow got hurt. And it's like, oh, the Bengals season went down the tubes. But the best part is for them, as East Melissa's in chat, always love seeing her. Nobody in the AFC North ran away with it. The Bengals are having a down year. The Steelers are Steelering right now. We got a firsthand look at that last week. And now we have a massive matchup between the Bills and the Bengals. And really, Stokes, you can make the argument that both teams have to have a sense of desperation with what the standings look like for both of them.
Absolutely. I think it's one of those situations where both teams are going to do whatever it takes in their power to win this game, and it's exciting for us as fans, I suppose, to feel like we have the better overall team, but it's nerve wracking as heck with the fact that hey, it's Joe Burrow. We have seen this story before.
We sure have. And they have a long list of weapons. I'm actually going to update a tweet real quick because the first topic we're going to talk about, Stokes, is actually not about the Bengals. It is about a roster move the Bills made a few minutes ago. ESPN, Adam Schefter broke the story that the Bills have claimed 2023 Pro Bowler Darius Slay off of waivers. Now, he's 35 years old. He's not necessarily the top of the line cornerback that he was, say, 5, 6, 7 years ago. But Stokes, I look at this as a move where the Bills have seen now multiple seasons have seen their playoffs come to an end because of injuries, where last year's a great example. Christian Benford goes down in the Chiefs game early. Kyer Elam is not up to the task of running with Xavier Worthy, and the Chiefs are getting incomplete or easy completions all over the yard. We even saw when the Bengals were here in the 2023 season where the injuries on defense had the Bills out there with AJ Klein off the street. And I don't think that Darius Slay is going to come in and take one of the top 3 boundary spots from obviously Christian Benford, Max Harrison, or Tre'Davious White. But with releasing Jamarcus Ingram, it seems like what the Bills are trying to do is insulate themselves with a better depth option with somebody with a Super Bowl ring, with playoff experience, that if he has to come in and play in a big spot, better than what we've seen out of Jamarcus Ingram or Dane Jackson. And that's what this move means to me.
1000%. I think that they're looking at it like, well, if all hell breaks loose, we can't have a situation like you said, like Kyer Elam's over there on an island and being made to look foolish. We'd rather have a guy who the lights won't get too big. Maybe he won't have the same explosion that he had before, but he's not going to have. He's not likely to have a mental mistake here, and he's likely to be able to do his job. He may not be able to stick with someone as more explosive than him, but he'll put himself in a decent position as far as understanding what it means to be prepared for a playoff game. And he's had a situation where he has success at the highest level in the NFL. So that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense to me, and we may have just got like an older version of Trey White, and we love Trey White for what Trey White is and was, and I think this might be one of those situations where it's another guy who's a little long in the tooth, and he'll provide something maybe, but I don't think that I would hope that the expectation is for him to come in and settle alongside Christian Benford.
He's played over 500 snaps this season for the Steelers. And, somebody's first response might be, why would the Steelers get rid of him if he was any good? Now, you could be snarky about it and say this is the same Steelers team that gave away George Pickens and then traded more than that for DK Metcalf. So maybe their evaluation of talent could use a little bit of work. But the reality is, this is kind of the new normal in the NFL, Stokes, is you get to this time of the calendar year, we're past the trade deadline, very similar to Brandon Cooks, and you're seeing some of these veterans ask for their release because they're just not happy with their role on their current team. Darius Slay was a healthy scratch for the Steelers against the Bills last week. The Steelers actually claimed Adam Thielen off of waivers, who was released by the Vikings. Maybe the one unique thing is he was released by a team that's still in playoff contention, where in the case of Cooks and Thielen, it happened from teams that aren't in playoff contention. But this is kind of how the NFL is trending now, where teams are letting these veterans go and try to find better landing spots to finish out the year. And for the Bills' sake, why not? Tre'Davious White has played better than I thought he would, significantly. Max Harrison has looked like a find whenever he's been on the field. And then Christian Benford is Christian Benford, but you can never have enough depth. So the Bills go out there and they add Darius Slay. Stokes, the Bills were on the practice field today. First time in preparation for the Bengals. Some very positive updates. And let's start with the tackles, as Caleb is there. Caleb is our favorite Chiefs fan. I think I have that right, Caleb. I know you're not a Bills fan, but you're one of our most loyal listeners. Exactly. Why not? Some very positive updates for both tackles, as Dion Dawkins is practicing today in concussion protocol. That means, for those of you that aren't familiar with the protocol, he is advanced to at least the stage where he can do football activities, which means he is on track, at least so it seems, on Wednesday, to clear the protocol and be active for game day against the Bengals this week. That is a massive get for the Bills. And then Spencer Brown was also a limited participant in practice today. I'm not as optimistic that Spencer Brown comes back this week. I think this could be a 2-week ramp up for him. We shall see. But at least with the fact that they're both on the practice field this week, Stokes, it seems likely you'll get Dawkins back. You probably will just slide RVD over to right tackle, where he's played well in filling in for Brown before. You at least feel like you're not going to have to go a cluster of games without both tackles. At very least, by the time the Bills see New England next week, they should have their bookends back.
Yeah, that's kind of what we want to see. Now, I think all of us were sort of rooting for the Bengals to, not do so well against the Ravens last week, so they be less likely to have Burrow out there. But I think that being able to have Dion Dawkins out there potentially this week, and we may not necessarily need Spencer, but having him when he looked not so great in the last game that he played, it was very visible, and it really showed in Josh's play as well. He didn't look like he trusted the tackles. He didn't trust his protection, and it made everything else worse. So I would rather Spencer be out there as close to 100 as he can, and have him not try to do any sort of thing to rush back, because if he's not good, a lot of what he does is with his athleticism. It's with his ability to move, and it may not be his legs that are the issue, but at the same time, it's all a part of the same thing. So I would much rather him be as close to 100 as possible, because I don't think the expectation. I don't think we should expect guys to be 100% at this point in the season. It's just too far along. But with Dion, if he's ready, if he's doing football activities, that means he's closer to getting ready and being out there. So I think that it'd be great for him to be out there. I would be much more with having Spencer sit this week.
Roy Collins with a good question. Wasn't today a walkthrough, though? It was, Roy. But when teams put out injury reports for walkthrough, they have to project what it would have looked like if they had a real practice, which means that the Bills have identified that Dion Dawkins specifically has cleared the concussion protocol enough that he could have participated in a limited fashion in practice. It's interesting to say this because on the other side of the injury report, Joey Bosa, who Sean McDermott classified today as week to week with his hamstring injury, did not practice. I would not anticipate him playing this week. I can't remember the last time McDermott ever classified somebody as week to week. I believe maybe it was Cole Beasley leading up to that Colts playoff game that very first year that they won the division. Otherwise, when you're week to week, you're missing a minimum of 1 week. The Bills have, it's going to sound strange, a luxury now to be conservative with guys. With New England winning on Monday, the chances of the Bills catching them and winning the division is so remote that I don't think that the Bills really have to force the issue, particularly on players like Joey Bosa, who have such a stark injury history. I think the Bills can kind of play it cool. They need to win 3 out of their last 5 to get in. 2 of those games are against the Jets and the Browns. They don't need to force the issue. And I'm in favor, Stokes, of essentially using the bubble wrap strategy on Joey Bosa, getting him to the playoffs as healthy as possible, maybe ramping him up for that final game of the season just to get the rust off, but making sure he's ready to roll by January.
Yeah, we have pleasantly seen what it's like when Joey Bosa is healthy. We've seen him dominate games, and I think that the best way of doing this, since we know hey, the division is very likely out of the range of possibilities at this point. So there's no sense in having him do anything that can mess with the reality that, hey, he is an injury prone player at this point in his career. So there's no I think it'd be better for the long term goal of the Bills to have him ready for the playoffs. So if week to week, I don't think if he's anywhere, even if he is, hey, I'd like to play. Nah, I think we'd rather get you ready for the playoffs, because we've seen him take over games. We've seen him be a very important player in pivotal games. So I would rather the Bills do what they can to protect him, protect the long-term goal of the Bills, which is to be successful in January and into February. And I think if we're going to get there, he's going to have to be on the field for it.
Another aspect of the injury report today was kind of a good news, bad news situation. Good news, Dalton Kincaid was a limited participant, which is a difference from last week. Last week, he was DNP Wednesday and then limited Thursday and Friday before ultimately being a healthy scratch. This week, being limited on Wednesday is a good sign. But the bad news is they now have him listed as limited with a hamstring and a knee. And the knee thing is new. So, you never want to be messing around with a hamstring. Who knows what the knee means for Joey or for Dalton Kincaid? But unfortunately, until proven otherwise, it feels like right now Dalton Kincaid has this rain cloud over his head where it's like one good thing happens and then he gets hurt. One good thing happens and then he gets hurt. And he, maybe like Bosa, is just one of those non-negotiable players that if you want to dream big about the Bills' chances of winning the whole thing this year, it has to involve him having a fully healthy January.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part, because we see how the offense looks when he's not out there, and it just looks it looks so frustrating from a fan's perspective. Is like, why does this offense run so poorly when we're missing one guy, or with him and Joshua Palmer? But but we also understand and we see how the offense looks when he's out there. So I think it's more prudent to do what we can to take care of him. I mean, I feel like I'm saying that over and over with these guys, but I mean, it's the important point. Hey, we've got goals that are in line with, I think, the rest of management. Hey, we want to win in January and February. So those guys are the important factors in us having that success. And I guess we've got to try to survive into these games. Unfortunately for the Bills, they're not going up against a defense that is known to shut down teams. So I think that if there's a week to sit them and try and make do against a defense, this is probably that week.
And Caleb brought up something similar when we were talking about the tackles. If there's a week to rest them, the Bengals are going to be playing without Trey Hendrickson, and that really is their one star player on defense. Now, they've gotten a very good season out of DJ Turner, the cornerback. I think he's somebody that if he was playing on a better defense would have gotten more recognition by now. But this Bengals defense is not very good, to say the least. And even last week when they held the Ravens down, it's alarming when you look at the total production the Ravens had, scoring so few points. But when you go back and look at it, Lamar Jackson just missed open receivers, missed some open throws. There was a touchdown pass to Isaiah Likely, I think, where he fumbled at like the 1 inch line. And then Zay Flowers caught a touchdown pass, but it was kind of a phantom offensive PI. Uh, I feel like, as Luka would say, it was kind of a fugazi good defensive performance. I'm not worried that the Bengals have somehow figured it out, at least defensively. And we're going to talk about the Bengals offense here in a little bit, Stokes, because that really is where, this team has a chance to be super dangerous. Whether or not Kincaid plays, whether or not Spencer Brown plays, let's assume for now that Deion Dawkins is going to play. This is one of those weeks where the Bills have to find their way to get to the 30s, I would think, if they want to win this game.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be one of those games where you're like, okay, we've gotten the 19, so we're good to go. No, I don't think you can feel comfortable at 24, 27. The way those guys can run, especially if T Higgins is out there, and understanding and knowing that, hey, Jamar Chase, like, there isn't anything we can do with this guy. We can't be comfortable. At that 20, at 21, 24, 27. I don't think that is a smart way to do it. And at the same time, I feel like the Bills are going to, and they did it last week, as far as, hey, whatever it takes for us to get this win. If we have to run the same play 47 times, you guys are going to get this play 47 times. So I think that that would be my expectation. Whatever we have to do, if Josh has to run the ball, 15 carries, and James Cook gets another 25, that's fine. And that would be how I would look at it. But I don't see. I would be shocked if the Bills won this game with less than 28 points.
And then let's see here. But just realized this, the early slot. Well, yeah. So funny thing about that, Caleb, it was the 425 slot. And then 2 weeks ago, it got flexed into the 1 o'clock slot so they could move the Bears and Packers game to 425. I don't think there was much expectation the Bengals were going to get Joe Burrow back and he was going to go beat the Ravens in primetime. But here we are. And now they have flexed Joe Burrow versus Josh Allen in a desperation game for both teams out of the primetime slot and lumped it in at the 1 o'clock slot with all the other games. The weather this weekend looks very normal for the game. There's slight wind. It looks like maybe some potential light snow, but nothing out of the ordinary. And generally speaking, in this era of Josh Allen football, that we like those kind of days. But with the Bengals having Jamar Chase, with T Higgins, who's also in concussion protocol, practicing on a limited fashion today, which puts him on track to play, I feel like this is one of those weeks where we should all be out there doing our rain dance and hoping for as much weather to muck it up as possible. Let's talk about this Bengals offense, Stokes. I had a thought on our post-game Steelers podcast, and I want to see what you think about how I would attack this Bengals offense. I don't believe there's a player in the Bills system, I don't care who it is, that can run with Jamar Chase, that can cover him one-on-one. There may not be a player in the league that can do that, quite honestly. What I would do is I would put Christian Benford, their Bills' unquestionable best corner, who since about week 6 on has been playing like the Christian Benford we all expected. He had a rough start, but has been playing better. I'd put him on T Higgins and just kind of live with the results. T Higgins is going to win some matchups. Benford's going to win some matchups. Live with the results. And then I am dedicating at least 2 people to Jamar Chase every play. I'm not going to fool myself into thinking that anybody on this team can cover him one-on-one. Will there be instances where he's one-on-one because you run a certain blitz or a certain coverage, or we think they're going to run and they pass? Sure, that's football. But in general, I would not have Benford follow Chase because I think that's kind of wasteful.
Yeah, I completely agree in that regard, because there's no reason to waste best on best when your best is not as good as their best. So what we do is, hey, we take our second best and we add another layer. I think that would be that'd be the smart game plan decision. Now, of course, you would imagine that the Bengals offensive coordinator said, well, I think if they try this is going to be our game plan. And even when we think about Benford versus T. Higgins, as you said, T. Higgins is going to win some of those. T. Higgins is going to dunk on Benford, very likely, at least once in this game, and that's okay. You make him make the difficult catches. It's a little bit different when you see Jamar Chase running 20 yards further than the cornerback. If you have one guy on Chase and you got him bracketed, hey, we're not going to let him go deep, and we're going to play him inside, force him to do a bunch of things that may force Joe Burrow to have to wait for a route to break open, or just to have to look away from Chase. That will be a good way to do things. But at the same time, I would imagine this is not the first time that the Bengals are going to face some team that may think this line of thinking. So they'll have something for it. And Jamar Chase, he eats against just about everybody. He's just really good. Joe Burrow is really, really good. So it's going to be, there's going to be a lot of moments where we're like, I don't know what we're going to do here, and they're going to be drives where they just carve us up because they have that kind of connection as a duo, and then adding T. Higgins in there. So yes, I think that's a great game plan, and just a matter of figuring out how you want to either disguise that or just flat out say, hey, we've got two on them, do something about it.
Nico comes in and says, blitz package must be done to make Burrow uncomfortable and force him to make air throws. Well, Nico, I am all for creative solutions, but here's the bad news. Joe Burrow is exceptional against the blitz. Since 2024, he has a completion percentage of 62.7. He has a touchdown to interception ratio of 17-2 when he's been blitzed. So blitz him if you want, but history says he's probably going to beat your blitz. He is a tough guy to stop. And, it's funny. A lot of talk right now, or not right now, but like coming into the year was about Mahomes and Allen and Lamar Jackson. It's almost like Joe Burrow has been forgotten. And I wonder if because as great as he is, he does kind of lack those highlight level, I'm going to break off a 60-yard run, or I'm going to break a sack in the backfield and then spin around and extend a play 10 seconds and then throw it 70 yards downfield. You don't get that from him. But it's the basics from Joe Burrow, Stokes, in my opinion, that might be as good or better than anybody in the sport.
Yeah, he's a surgeon. He's an assassin. He is one of those guys where it's just, okay, this is boom, 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 boom. And at the end of the day, game is at 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. Like, how did that happen? Yeah, he's just that good. He has a lot of accuracy, and he is willing to step in and make those throws that you don't think he should or could throw. He's a remarkable quarterback, and as you said, he's not going to be the guy that's going to buy a bunch of time, but he is going to be a guy that he's going to put the ball exactly where it needs to be, and he has a great connection. So one of the things that the other quarterbacks don't really have, or I guess Mahomes has it with Kelsey, but like with Lamar Jackson, he doesn't really have that guy like, okay, to figure it out, I'm going to get it to you, you're going to catch it. Maybe he had it with Mark Andrews before, but Josh Allen certainly doesn't have that. And Pat, he has that with Kelsey. But with Joe Burrow, he has a wide receiver in Jamar Chase that he's been playing with since college, and he has another guy that he's come into the league with, and T. Higgins, like who it's not necessarily the same connection type, but it's like, if I get it up there, I'm trusting you, 60, 75% of the time that you're going to get it. So even if, hey, Joe made the wrong decision, he's got the horses that can make it the right decision.
All right. We have, let's see. Oh, here we go. This is a game where the run defense worries me in a different way. If Chase Brown is gashing you, then you have to come down and play the run. It's bombs away. So I hear what you're saying, Caleb. I think this is going to be one of those classic Bills games, Stokes, and I'll see if you agree, where the Bills are going to be almost okay with anything that happens in the run game. I don't think they're going to get baited coming down against this team. If you want to run the ball 30 times against us, thank you. If you're averaging 6 yards a run, a 6-yard run is still way better than a 30-yard pass. And so I think the Bills are going to live with pretty much whatever the Bengals want to do in the run game within reason. But I can't see a scenario where anything Chase Brown or Samaje Perine are doing on the ground, Stokes, really influences the Bills to a point where they're going to give the Bengals a heavy box.
Yeah, I would think that as far as game planning is concerned, I would imagine that they're talking to Shaq Thompson like, hey, look, we're not going to give you a whole lot of help back here on against the run, so it's going to be you guys up front. You got you six up front that's going to stop the run. If you guys don't stop the run, it's whatever. Because we're not going to let Joe and Chase and T beat us. We're not going to do that. So if they're going to beat us, they're going to have to do it with 260 yards rushing like we did last week. So that's going to be. I would think if I was game planning, of course, that would be my thought process, and I'd be trying to get the guys up front, get them hyped up about this game because hey, this is going to be on you guys. If you guys want to win, you guys are going to have to do this. And some guys take a lot of pride in that. Some guys want to get in there and be the reason that the team wins. And this could be one of those situations. The defensive front could be the reason.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit about when the Bills have the ball because there's a larger strategy at play here, and then there's I think there's a lot that can work against this Bengals defense, quite frankly. But I think there's a certain strategy we're going to see the Bills utilize a lot. But the larger strategy. Do you think that this is a game where the Bills are going to try to play ball control? And we've talked about all the implications of that. When you play ball control, you're milking the clock, but you also run the risk of running the clock out on yourself. Think of it like a baseball game. I've used this analogy before. If the Dodgers, who I'm not the biggest baseball guy, but my understanding is they're more talented than everybody else. They've won back-to-back World Series. If the Dodgers are playing, let's say, an average team like the St. Louis Cardinals, and they play a 9-inning game and a 7-game series, the Dodgers are going to win that 8 times out of 10. If they play a 3-inning game, who knows? Everything is magnified. Every error is magnified. Every hard contact that ends up being an out is magnified. Now, why does that have to do with football? If you take what is normally a 12, 13, 14 possession game, and because you're taking 8 to 10 minutes off the clock with each possession, you trim it down to 6, 7, 8 possessions per team, you are limiting your opportunity to prove that you are the better team. So when the Bills take that strategy against a team like the New York Jets, I'm sitting here losing my mind because I'm like, yeah, you're better, but you're only up by a touchdown. It's the fourth quarter. You've left yourself the opportunity for variance to enter the equation. Against a team like the Bengals, who has the firepower we just talked about with Burrow and Higgins and Chase, and then that doesn't even mention Noah Fant, Gesicki, Chase Brown, all the things that they have. Is this a week where you would try to shorten the game, keep Burrow on the sidelines, go for those 8-minute drives? Is that a strategy you would use? Or would you say, hey, my offense is great, your defense sucks, let's see who can go punch for punch?
I go back and forth with this, especially when it comes to the Bengals, especially the Bengals of this era, because they have a great offense and a bad defense. It's one of those situations where you decrease your margin of error when you take away those possessions. It makes every single fourth down decision that much more important. It makes every single when you're in the no man's land area inside the 40 between the 40s rather, it makes all of those plays and those situations magnified if your goal is to, hey, we're going to keep these guys off the field. And it makes every time you go for a field goal, it makes it feel like you lost that drive, and that's what's scary, and that's what makes me feel like, hey, let's just play our game, and make them play with us rather than trying to keep the ball away from them, because I would like to think that the Bills feel like we have a better defense, and we think that, hey, if we go punch for punch, they're going to miss a punch eventually, and we're going to hit them with a hook. And then they're chasing us. Now we can make them pay for it. So I would like to think that their goal would be to just play their game, but I also understand, hey, that man on the other side of the field, they can really make us pay if we make any sort of mistake. So I can understand the desire to be more conservative and make sure, hey, let's sustain drives, make them have to worry about every fourth down decision of theirs every time they have a third down and 8. They have to go for the first down because they're not gonna want to kick it back to us because they know, hey, we're bleeding this clock that we thought we'd have 3 possessions in this quarter. This quarter's now over. We had no possessions, that type of thing.
Well, one strategy I think the Bills can utilize against this team to a lot of success. It's one that I've been screaming for a long time for the Bills to use. It doesn't seem like they've used it as much as my liking would want them to, but I'm hoping that they're kind of saving it for playoffs and the big games is under center passing and then off of that play action. And why I think that's a great strategy, particularly against this Bengals team, Stokes, is up the middle. They have a very susceptible linebacker crew. Now they have 2 athletic linebackers in Demetrius Knight and Barrett Carter, but those are both rookies. They both have shown an ability to overrun plays, get kind of lost in coverage. And I think if you get James Cook going early and then you use that to feed the under center play action game, I could see a situation where the Bills really put them in a bind and kind of go up and down the field at will on them. Do you think this is a scenario where you'll see the Bills go more under center because they haven't lived there a lot this year, but I think it's something when they do it that they are as good as anybody in the sport?
I would like to think I think that is something that we're starting to come and see a little bit more. I think we've reached that point of the year where between Brady and McDermott's like, hey, whatever we have to do to win this game, that is what we're doing. So this is not the time to try some new stuff. This is not the time to sprinkle in things that hey, these are 50-50 plays type of deal. What do we do well? What do they not defend well? And let's attack that all day long and make them have to make a decision to stop us. And we already have the counterpunch for their counter. That's what I think this time of the year is, especially when we're looking at, hey, we have to win 3 out of these last 5, as you said. Like this is the time where we have to do whatever it takes, and we have to, punch with whatever punches we have that we know are going to work.
The spread for this game is Bills by 5.5, and that's carried throughout the week. And actually, the juice is moving toward the Bills, where you actually have to bet more to win even money. Does that surprise you based on how the Bengals looked last week, based on the fact that they played on Thursday and they've had kind of that mini bye?
Yeah, very much. Like I don't know. Like it seems like Vegas has forgotten all the times the Bills have played the Bengals. It just seems like they're not really taking that into account. And of course, that those teams are not this team. But at the same time, Joe Burrow and the rest of the Bengals, like they understand this matchup. He's played against these McDermott defenses. Like it hasn't been a situation where the Bills have really just taking care of these guys like that. And the Bengals, they don't really have a whole lot to lose. And maybe the bettors are looking at the way the Bills dominated on the ground, and the expectation would be that if the Bengals get behind, they're not going to be able to catch up if they can't stop the Bills on the ground. So maybe that's my thought, or maybe they're thinking the final score is going to be like 34-28, and Burrow's driving down to try to win, and he just doesn't. Like maybe those are the things that they're thinking about, and it still covers a 6-point spread, but I don't know.
I like how you end it with the I don't know, because when Luka and I were on the air, recording the podcast, we were talking about the spread, and we were both pretty caught off guard by that. One last little factoid before we get into our predictions. The Bills are currently the number 1 team in the NFL in pass yards against. They gave up 165 passing yards a game. And now on the surface, the initial response is, yeah, when you can run it at the clip that teams have been running on the Bills, why would you pass?
Right.
But now you're seeing charts like EPA that takes all those things into account, takes quality of opponent, takes game situation, and really is like EPA per play. And the Bills rank really high against the pass. I think this is a fantastic litmus test for that, because my eyeballs tell me this is not an elite Bills pass defense.
No.
Now, I have to forget the first half of the season when Taylor Rapp was out there looking lost as can be, when Terrell Bernard was out there jogging around, not running around because he's so slow with the injury. and really try to think about how this team looks when Jordan Poyer came out there, when Cole Bishop started taking off, when we saw improvement from Tre'Davious White and then inserted Maxwell Harrison out there, when quite honestly, Shaq Thompson plays like the best linebacker on this team, and I'm not even sure how close it is. Um, I am actually really excited because I think the Bengals are going to try to come in and throw it all over the yard. And while you and I are sitting here like, I don't know about that stat. If we're sitting here on Monday and the Bengals came in here and they throw for less than 300 yards in a game where the Bills score in the 30s and the Bills win, and it's kind of like an even matchup between the Bengals offense and the Bills defense, I think we can start to really dream big.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that when you have the underlying numbers that support the statistics, it gives you a sign of hope. But you see those stretches, and I think that we as fans are oftentimes the worst critics. Like when you're watching it, you're like, this guy can't cover anything. But whether the numbers say this or numbers say that, like if you're not a fan, you can look at it and say those guys are actually pretty good. But since we see their flaws as magnified as we do, we're not able to accept it as easily or as effectively. So, but yeah, the way Cole has started or not started, but as he has ascended, I think that it's. But between Cole and between Christian Benford, like you have two out of the four guys in the secondary that you feel like you can trust. Like, hey, whether they make the play or not, they're going to be in a decent position. And most of the time, more often than not, they're making a play. And when, as you mentioned earlier, Trey, he hasn't been great, but he has made plays that's like, oh wow, Trey can still make these kinds of plays. And as you mentioned, Jordan Poyer as well. So it's maybe we're too hard on these guys because we see the games that we focus a lot on the games that the Bills lose, and we see, hey, Drake London went for 8,000 yards on the Bills. They couldn't stop him, even though he was the only guy that was important. But it's just we're focused on that bad stuff because this is what we do as fans.
It is exactly what we do as fans. And another baseball parallel, every fan of every team in baseball thinks their closer is terrible because they've seen every blown save. If you have that memory of a blown save, it doesn't matter if it's a random June game against the Pirates. You remember being upset at him that night, and every time he takes the mound now, you're thinking, oh, God, he's going to do it again, even if history shows he does that maybe 1 out of every 15 times. All right, the pass defense is definitely better than the pass offense. That's sadly true. Very curious to see what role Keon Coleman has going forward. I really do think the Bills are going to have to find a meaningful role for him. I don't believe he's an X. I think Gabe Davis has been very strong at that position, but I don't know, especially with Joshua Palmer out, who the Bills have on the field that can really threaten you. Maybe that's Brandon Cooks. Maybe he finds like the fountain of youth here in Buffalo. I don't think, as much as I like his reliability, I don't think Khalil Shakir scares defenses at all. Kincaid will certainly help the threaten aspect, but I think Keon Coleman has the skill set to get drafted as high as he did. I'd like to see the Bills find a way to utilize that the rest of the way. All right, Stokes, it's prediction time. The Bills and Bengals do battle at 1 o'clock on Sunday. It's a big game. And if the Bills win this game, they will be 9-4 heading to Foxborough next week before a massive showdown with the New England Patriots. Who do you like in this matchup? And whatever factoids or predictions you want to throw in, feel free.
I'm struggling with this pick. It is very difficult to pick against the Bills, but it's also difficult to pick against, understanding what Joe has done against the Bills. But I'm going to pick the Bills 31-28. The Bengals are going to be driving down for the win, and I think they're going to be in a situation where they don't play for overtime. They're going to go for the win, and they're going to trust Joe to throw a ball to Chase, and it's going to be broken up. That's 31-28. The Bills are going to go for 175 yards rushing. Josh Allen's going to go for 60 of those.
Okay. That's very specific. I like it.
Like,
And when that ball is in the air heading towards Chase, that is going to be the longest 3 seconds of so many of
yeah.
our lives. We're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then Benford knocks it away, thankfully. All right. We have Roy Collins coming in. He's thinking Cincy 30-26. I also am going to predict the Bills to win this game. I just think when you look at the 4 units here, you have Bengals offense, which I think is probably the best unit in the entire game. Then you have Bills offense, which is very good to elite, but it's just not elite in the way that's as aesthetically appealing to us. It's not elite in the way that I think a lot of us would prefer when we dreamed about having this franchise quarterback that we finally have in Josh Allen. It's elite at running the ball and then throwing the ball short and time possession and all that things. But they score, they get their points, they get where they need to. It's just not as sexy as it was when it was Diggs and John Brown and Beasley and all that. But I do think that the next thing is that there's a decent gap there, but I think the Bengals and Bills are the 2 best units. I think the Bills defense is better than the Bengals defense by a bigger margin than the Bengals offense is better than the Bills offense. And that to me is the difference. Even though the Bills have been a little careless with the ball, I saw the turnovers against the Steelers were so fluky. Gabe Davis, finish your route. And James Cook, you're awesome, but just don't drop the ball. You bounced off your knee. I actually trust the Bills defense in this spot to come up with more stops against the elite offense than I do the Bengals defense to stop the Bills. If Lou Amaruno was still there, I'd be singing a different tune. He seems to kind of own the Bills in that regard. But this Bengals team has not been up to the challenge. I believe we saw the Jets go there and get nearly 40 points. We definitely saw the Bears go there and get nearly 40 points. I don't see really why the Bills would have trouble doing that. I think the Bills are going to be able to dictate whatever they want to this defense. And it's really just a matter of, can the defense get me 3 or 4 stops in this game? Or, hold them to 3 or 4 field goals, where even if you don't get stops, just keep them under 30 and let Josh Allen get to 30. Or keep them under 35 and hope Josh Allen can get there. But either way, I just have this trust factor in the Bills in this spot. The counterpoint, so I'm gonna say the Bills win this game 31-23. I think it's going to be a surprisingly good defensive performance against the Bengals, and but it's going to be close and kind of uncomfortable late. But ultimately, the Bills get the win. Have you looked at the Bengals schedule, Stokes?
I have not.
So if they win this Bills game, boy, are they right back in it. The next week, they play the Ravens, who they just trashed in their own building last week, which is a very important game for them because that's who they're trying to catch in the AFC North. And then they close out the season, Dolphins, Cardinals, Browns. Bengals fans are 100% looking at this Bills game as, we get that, we're good.
Yeah. And if they then beat the Ravens, they'll have both the tiebreaker over them, so they don't have to worry about that so much. I think that if they win this game this weekend, they will be as dangerous, if not more dangerous than the Chiefs make the playoffs, because you'd have Joe Burrow like riding really, really high and understanding that their offense is probably better than the Chiefs. But I don't know, maybe let's not take it that far, because the defense is still bad. So let's not get a little crazy. But they can be thinking that they'll be in the playoffs and have a really good chance, and they won't go anywhere and feel nervous. I mean, that's basically with the entire AFC. There are flaws with every single team on that side.
When the Bills lost their only home loss in the past year and a half, earlier this year, to the Patriots, Sean McDermott was very quick to point out the energy of the Bills in that game. They didn't match the energy of the Patriots. He also called it out in the Falcons game. You could just tell the Falcons were super hyped for that game. And I'm not the biggest, pounding your chest after every play makes you hype, but you can just feel a team's energy. You could feel the Bills' energy last week against the Steelers, even when things didn't go well. I think Shaq Thompson brings a lot of that on defense. I think he's an energy source. I think Jordan Poyer being in the lineup is an energy source for the Bills. I'm very curious to see the energy in this game, because we just talked about the reasons why for the Bengals, this is kind of like the midseason Super Bowl. You get this one and everything that's happened to this point is pretty much erased. Everything's right in front of you. For the Bills, Yeah, it's a big one, but you got the Patriots next week. So if you lose this one, it would stink. But like, I don't know. I want to see some professionalism out of the Bills because I believe this is a big game for their playoff chances. I want to see the Bills match the energy of a team that I think is going to show up to Highmark on Sunday, ready to roll, ready to take the game to you. And can you match that intensity and actually be the team that dictates? So I think that's going to be something that's certainly worth watching. All right, Stokes, we're going to get out of here soon. Any final thoughts? Bills, Bengals, or anything else before we get out of here?
I don't have too many thoughts aside from I feel extremely confident that the Bills are going to make the playoffs. I think that getting to 11. I'm not sure how it's going to get done. I know the two. I'm just not sure of the other one that the Bills are going to get. But there, I think we should be getting ready for playoff football, and it is unfortunate that this is something that we had to like discuss as previous years have been that we've been talking about the division, but the Bills are going to be as dangerous as anyone. I think that the Patriots, while they have looked really good, um, the playoffs are going to be a different beast for Drake May. And I look fondly at Stephon Diggs enjoying his time in New England. I want him to succeed, and I'm also sad that he's succeeding in that jersey. But shout out to Diggs, I guess.
Would you sign right now? Round one, Bills at Patriots.
I absolutely would. I think I'd be super nervous. Let's not get too far. I'd be super nervous, but I think it would be a wonderful type of chef's kiss type of situation where the Bills could say no, like we're still those dudes. Whereas and on the Patriots side, and they could be like taking the crown from the Bills. And I think those types of stakes in that type of game, I would really want that.
Yeah, like from Bill's standpoint, it's hey, congratulations on that division banner. We're gonna go ahead and send you home now and remind you who daddy in this division is. And just being honest, I like Drake May a lot. I like Mike Vrabel a lot. That is not a spot that would scare me as a Bills fan. Recognizing the Bills can lose to any team in the playoffs. It's not like there's any guaranteed win. You play good teams in the playoffs. The Bills have gone to Arrowhead 4 times now in the Josh Allen era. Wait, 4, 1, 2. I'm sorry, 3 times, and they lost. They had one here too, in the playoffs. But I'm not going to be fearful of going to Foxborough and playing the Patriots. I just am not in Drake May's first ever playoff spot. And I would honestly, outside of a scenario that puts the Bills in Baltimore round one of the playoffs, would sign for any of these scenarios at the Colts, at the Broncos. If the Texans end up winning the South, I wouldn't be thrilled by going to the Texans, but also I'd be sitting here like that was a Thursday night game. Those are kind of weird. I feel like the Bills can be up to that challenge a little bit. There's just get me a playoff field that doesn't include Mahomes and maybe doesn't include Lamar and Burrow. And I don't care if the Bills play their games on the moon. I think it's go out there and get it done, Bills.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if they see the Texans again, hopefully they'll chip the ends. Maybe a time or two. That'd be great.
I mean, that's just your opinion. Look,
yeah.
you have your opinion, and Joe Brady has his. Apparently, Joe Brady. I wonder what Josh Allen said to Joe Brady earlier that day that made Joe Brady think, "I want to see this guy get smacked in the face."
Yeah, seriously. I mean, how many times do you have to see your tackles get abused off the edge to think, you know what, maybe we should give him a little help, maybe a little bit of help. It's just unbelievable. Anyway.
I was wrong on Will Anderson. We did that draft show together. I was like, I don't see a special player. I think he's good. Oh, I was wrong. He's special.
Yeah, he is really good.
Oh man, they are set up nicely there. Anyway, Stokes, always great to have you come hang out. We might be seeing more of Stokes the rest of the way with the news Luka dropped on our podcast about he and his wife welcoming a beautiful daughter to this world last week. Congratulations again to the Lukas. Stokes will be filling in where he can along the way. Luka will be here, but not as consistently the rest of this season. And then, we'll be here every time slot you're used to. I'll be back on Sunday for Bills Chat halftime. Hopefully it's a happy halftime, although we get a little busier in chat when it's unhappy halftime.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, the Dolphins halftime, there was like 800 of you in here, and it was great, but you're all mad, just like me. And then it'll either be
This week
Stokes.
Lily was in the chat. She was
Yeah,
going ham.
she was going. She likes to see her name pop up on chat. And then it'll either be Stokes or Luka with me, or maybe just solo pod. Who knows? Breaking down Bills, Bengals post game, and then right back here next week for the big one: Bills, Patriots, all the marbles. Any scenario where the Bills lose that game, the Patriots clinch the AFC East, even if the Bills win this week. So a lot to talk about next week, but we got this Bengals game first. For Stokes, I am Josh McCarty. We will see you next time on Bills Chat Live.